Okay, time to continue onwards for whatever that's worth. We're going back to the acid cave. I feel like we were holding our own reasonably well there, at least until that one moment where we pulled back. We'll save the lava cave for later, though. Now part of me can't help wondering why one cave has lava and the other has acid. Is it just for the sake of making them visually distinct from one another? Or is one bit of environmental hazard more dangerous than the other when both are triggered by us walking over them? And why am I taking so long to decide to land and get in the cave here? I'm already pretty mentally committed to dealing with the side quests in the underground before we go deal with the next portion of the main quest. It's not like I wrote a note to myself that I spent such and such amount of time trying to confirm something on the online guide I was using at a given point in time. Finally touched the ground, and we wound up in a random encounter literally one step away from where we landed. I wish you could say that our hero stayed in the air out of caution, instead of because I was trying to figure out what to do next when we get down here. But again, when it comes to fights in this game, it feels like either things are very much one-sided in our favor to the point that you can turn your brain off, or things are very troublesome for us. There is no real middle ground here. And this dungeon is far more troublesome than anything we might run into outside of it. It is just such a jarring increase in difficulty when we get into the dungeon compared to when we were wandering around outside of it. Looks like there's still a good number of chests for us to grab in this place before we're fully done with it. Huh. Guess we found a save point inside of the place. Would have been nice to know about that earlier on, but then I suppose after Rosa ended up hit by 5 different status effects at once, I wasn't all that inclined to stay in the dungeon any longer. I didn't give a damn about restoring the MP we lost. I had other annoyances. And of course now I'm worried when we're going to run into the next Malboro, and if there might be other enemies that will be recurring around here that we haven't seen much of, if any, just yet. Really feeling slow making decisions in this clip so far, and I'm hoping this isn't going to be a thing for the footage for the rest of the game, especially since the decisions I've been making after long pauses feel like decisions I probably should have made near instantly without a guide. The first was landing the airship and walking into the dungeon in the first place. The second was casting Float, since both possible routes we could take on this floor are absolute acid lakes. It's one thing for me to be cautious about which direction we walk in, but I should have cast that spell the instant we came off those stairs, because both directions have it. And great. Now part of me is wondering if part of my issue is that I had to flip through internet pages, because there are so many damn maps within this singular dungeon, which can make it a bit of a pain in the ass to orient yourself and figure out where you are and where you need to go. And it's not made easier by the fact that there's not all that much in this dungeon that feels like a landmark of some kind or another. There's the odd cabin inside of it, the save point we saw just now, and maybe the arrangement of chests and acid lakes. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of different shades of green that blur together for me. I suppose the coloration of the dungeon is kind of appreciated. It's not as much of an eye strain as if the place was mostly white like a snowy area, or mostly tan like a desert. Still, green vines for the walls and floor with the occasional pool of green acid that we don't want to walk through. Is there any reason. Oh, shit. 2 Malboros at once. And it's our first goddamn fight in the dungeon for this clip. What the hell? We repeated the same fight so many times the last time we were in this dungeon that I kind of thought that was the only thing for a good while. And I am legitimately pissing myself in terror now. Well, that attempt at Asuna is gonna be a waste since he got knocked out that damn quickly. Son of a bitch! Sorry, hitting the reset button. Now, maybe, just maybe, that fight could have been winnable, but Fire was not doing anywhere near the kind of damage we would like, and we had a man down before he could do a damn thing. Not exactly a great way to make you feel all that confident in your chances, that's for sure. I don't think I've ever outright hit reset in a game like this before. At least not when I'm recording and getting ready to do commentary on it. I'm not sure if that's a sign of the game being a good kind of challenging, since I felt genuine fear there, or bad design, since I didn't even want to bother trying to fight our way out of that hole. And again, this is a bonus dungeon. We do not absolutely need to be here, so it might be my fault for trying. We could have absolutely stayed away from the green dungeon and just gone all the way to the moon by now. Hell, the story kind of encourages that. There is no real motivation for the characters we're working with to even want to enter this random cave, or the other one outside of pure curiosity at this point. And nobody on this cast feels like they'd be that kind of curious. Cecile is a very duty-bound person and has not changed from that, even if he's gone from being a barren soldier to more of a Ronin-style wandering character. Edge has kind of gotten his vengeance, and based off his attitude, he's continuing on just so he doesn't actually have to take responsibility for his nation. Rosa just completely revolves around Cecile, so wherever he goes, she wants to be. No real initiative from her. And sadly enough, I don't really have all that much of an idea what Rydia's motivations might be at this point. It's not like the story has done all that much with the possible desire for vengeance against Golbez. Both Tella and Edge already had the vengeance thing anyway. As major as the trauma was of losing her home and her mother, it feels like this far into the game that she just doesn't really give that much of a shit about that anymore. It's probably not helped by the fact that for her, it's been years since that event for some reason or another. She doesn't feel like she has any personal connection to the other characters in the cast. There's no sense of camaraderie, not even with Cecile, who she should be extremely close to. You know, the more I think about it, the stranger it feels that the supposedly best character in the game doesn't really feel especially motivated to keep pushing forwards. It could have been worse, sure, but still, she's here because events have pulled her with this team. She has no personal goals or drive, and no personal connection to anyone we work with over the course of the game. She feels just as close to Cecile as she does to Rosa, Tella, or Edge. She knows who they are, she's gone through some events with them, but I just haven't felt anything from what we've seen of the dialogue to say if she considers such and such a friend, a sibling of some variety, or what. I know, character interactions isn't really what the writing in this game wants to go for, but considering the quality of the broad strokes writing, it's hard not to feel like they should have shifted to more character-focused stuff. I know I keep saying it, but it bears repeating. This game was the first time the series tried to do anything that could have a central character like Cecile. Final Fantasies 1, 2, and 3 all had completely blank slates that the player could alter. And while the ones in Final Fantasy 2 had more definition than the ones in 1 or 3, it pales in comparison to the character definition from 4 onwards. And role-player games after this game took notes on what worked and what didn't. And they all evolved after Final Fantasy IV laid down the foundation. Bloody hell, even the fights that I'm confident we can win in this dungeon are absolute grinders. And there's one specific enemy type I want absolutely nothing to do with in this dungeon, regardless of how much time we might have to prepare or how many resources we have to draw on. I'm not sure how much more dangerous the enemies on the moon could be from this. I just have the distinct feeling that when we get out of the atmosphere, the enemies are going to be downright bullshit to a degree that I'd better level up at least a few more times before we feel comfortable dealing with them. It's not like there's too many stores to buy better items from, at the very least. Hell, I'm pretty sure the Malboro counts as bullshit with just that one attack. And while there might be a way to nullify the disruption that thing's bad breath can cause, I can't really think of it right now, especially since one spurt of bad luck, and Rosa is out of the fight entirely. Maybe I'm just too damn reliant on healers in games like this, but with how long these dungeons can be, can you blame me? So many floors and rooms to check, and this far into the game, there's no way you can finish off a dungeon in a single clip. Not unless the dungeon is just a transitory one, and there's another dungeon immediately after that. Yeah, it probably would have been a better idea to make sure we have arrows loaded up instead of worrying about what kind of bow we're holding. I probably should have dealt with that earlier, but considering Rosa is the only one who has to worry about ammo, and I've been using her as a healer more than a damage dealer, can you blame me for not thinking about it all that much? Though I'm not too sure why I decided to run away from the Bog Witch and the Toads. Sure, getting constantly turned into toads ourselves would be a bit of a pain in the ass, especially since we don't have that many cures for that particular status effect, but we really need to gain some more experience around here. Not really sure why the frogs we turn into in this game all have fezzes on their heads, or why enemies that turn us into frogs just constantly spam that spell over and over again, sometimes cancelling out the status effect they just caused. Well, at least that's something Rydia can cure. That'll save some, resources and some of Rose's MP. Though I'm going to be running away from so many fights, it's going to kind of mess with the very point of why we decided to go through this bonus dungeon in the first place. Seriously, you're not going to gain any experience for running, and you're not going to gain any money from it either. You're going to lose some. Motherfucker! Before any of my team can even move, I get hit by... How the hell are you supposed to deal with this crap? Just how? Seriously, our fastest guy didn't even get a chance to slash his knives when Cecile ended up hit by that absolutely crippling move. And great, he's taken out because he's turned into a frog, making you fragile as hell, or maybe just because a Malboro hits like a goddamn truck. Our tankiest guy with a pretty hard-hitting sword was taken out pretty much from the word go. This one enemy type is just such a difficulty spike from everything else. And great, looks like Edge is going to be out of the fight as well. And of course he goes down just as I try to heal him. Right, I am just going to abandon the fight again. Dear God, that's twice I've reset in the same damn dungeon. In the same clip. Our lowest level fighters are 39. That is a respectable number. But because of the Malboro, I am being treated like I am painfully underleveled and under-equipped. Just one of them is enough to change the tide of what's going on. And some of the random encounters in here have us fight against two of them at once. Dear God, I am just going to fast forward through the rest of this dungeon, regardless of what we're fighting or if it's unexplored ground. Unless we get into conversations down here for some reason, we are just skipping ahead. I still say the magnetic cave has the most annoying gimmick for a dungeon, but the Malboro is such a jump in difficulty in this game that it just feels pretty broken to me. Now, maybe I'm just not using the right tactics against the enemies down here, or maybe we were meant to have a different set of equipment to deal with the bastards. But somehow I doubt having a 5th member of our team would do anything to really make the fighting feel in any way less bullshit, considering the hits we've been taking. Well, that group of nothing but dreamers was certainly something we could handle. Treants alongside the dreamers is also something I can feel confident we can take down, even if it's quite painful to go through. I'm pretty sure I can also take on the frogs and their witch lady. I just don't want to, because it would be so much us being turned into frogs over and over and over again. But the moment I see one of those plant bastards, I want to run like hell. Seriously, both our magic users taken out of the equation before we could even react? It just feels like so many steps above everything else in here that I want to call it a mistake. What? Were we supposed to go through the red cave before we entered the green one? Both of them are accessible at the same point of the game. Both of them are side quests that we could easily just not realize we needed to do and just move on with the story. How the hell are you supposed to know what order to go through the two of them? Yeah, I suppose it's just another thing I'm gonna have to try to keep in mind when we finally get around to working on the remake of this game, but yeah, at this point, it feels like I've lost the vast majority of the momentum I felt when we went through the absolutely fantastic opening of the game. Right. And Edge is unable to cast the spell we told him to because this dungeon feels oddly spiteful. Maybe they heard all the complaints I had about the story and took it personally. Though making the fights more difficult doesn't really make up for the fact that the story doesn't have enough going for it to keep things going for so damn long. Wait, claws? Oh, we came here because we're just doing some exploration. I feel like it should be pretty standard to try to learn more about the world when you're tasked with eventually saving it. Too bad that, this world doesn't seem to have too much depth to it. Anyway, if the claws weren't enough of a hint, we found Yang. Like so many others, his death was greatly exaggerated. That probably would have had more of an impact if it wasn't for the fact that we saw quite a number of false deaths in the story so far. Anyway, apparently there are 2 ways to exit the dungeon, but the game will only act like there is one entry point. I suppose that's kind of appreciated, since I just plain was sick of that green hellhole and didn't want to walk all the way back from the way we came. Unfortunately, we need to do something in order to wake Yang up from that coma, which means we're gonna have to go right through that green dungeon again later on. Ah well. My finger's ready on the fast forward button for the next time we get there. I'm pretty sure I want to go back to town first, though. Replenish our NP and supplies before we enter the Red Cave and see what's in there as well. Then we can get on with the quest to wake Yang up. I can probably get away with some more fast forwarding in this clip, actually, considering we're not going to be doing anything especially interesting in what's left of the clip. Guess we'll just have to see next time how many times we manage to level up in the next dungeon.